Hey, it's Jose Galison of No Way Jose. You can find me on the No Way Jose YouTube channel. You can also find me on all the major podcatchers and Odyssey as well. Today, my guest is Stephanie Edmonds. As always, I'm going to keep doing this for a while, giving you guys a little reminder of how this works. This is a live stream right now. It'll only be available for today, and then I'll put it on unlisted. So I guess if you still have the link, you can still get to it or whatever. It will be released later as a numbered episode. Patrons will get it. I have the link in my Patreon. So if you're a patron, you have access to it all the time. You don't have to go hunt down the link somewhere. Also, my patrons don't have to super chat to get priority. I usually give them a little code ahead of time. I gave them one for this one. So if any of them show up, I will notice the code in the chat and I'll react accordingly. Yeah, so this one, feel free. I mean, just you don't have to super chat to get on here, but it gives it priority. I mean, obviously, if you want to say dumb shit and super chat it, that's a good way to get on there. If it's dumb shit and it's not super chatted, I'm probably not going to bring it up. Today, my topic will be supporting non-compliance. We'll also probably talk about other stuff. So just to give you guys a little update on my situation and how this is kind of pertinent to me. I know I told you guys before that if I absolutely had to in my current situation, I probably would. But I'm currently waiting on my religious exemption to see if it goes through or not. I've also kind of for those in the know who understand the lingo, wink wink, I may have found a little agorism hookup too if it comes to it. But yeah, so I mean, and ideally, hopefully I can, if it really comes to it, I can drag feet enough to where I'm in a better financial situation. Because honestly, I mean, if I'm a good spot, I can tell them to kick rocks, and this kind of applies to this episode too, to kind of where she's coming from. I mean, I'll let her introduce herself more, but from what I've gathered, she's a teacher who's being fired for not getting the pokey poke. And yeah. Also, if you guys notice the intro, it's back. It's a little bit different because I keep having to change it for copyright reasons. So hopefully this one doesn't get hit for copyright. I had my boy Justin Campbell dick with it some more. So I don't know. It's like they don't even tell me if it's the audio or it's the video that does it. So I don't know. He messed with the audio this time. So we just keep tinkering a little bit more until we don't get hit for it. But yeah, with that, oh yeah, as always, I like money. Give me money. Patreon.com just No Way Jose 2020. So I mentioned being a patron earlier. You do get a little bit of a hookup for that. You get easier access to episodes even before the release is a numbered episode, and then also you get to get priority in the or in the live chat. As always, TopLobsta is the man, so go check out his content, TopLobsta.com. I don't have one of his shirts on right now. I'm kind of slacking after coming back from Tom Woods 2000. I haven't done laundry, but so I don't have one of my assortment of TopLobsta shirts. And all right, yeah, let's go ahead and bring on Stephanie. What's up, Stephanie?
Hey, what's going on?
What's up?
Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem. Do you prefer go like Steph or Stephanie, or do you have some sort of?
I have no preference. Whatever feels better to you.
Okay, because Stephanie feels like formal. I don't know, but like
you go Steph. Steph is cool.
Steph feels kind of douchey though. I don't know why.
No, it's all cool. Like, hey, it's Steph. Yeah. I think that's usually what I say, unless I'm trying to be formal. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So I don't know.
But yeah, thanks for having me on. This is cool. I liked your intro. I was digging. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I like the original better. We had to mess with the music, but it's still good. I still like it. And if anything, it's probably better. It went way harder before, but it's actually probably good to dial it back, be a little bit more elevator music-y to be a little more like better for intro.
Family friendly and stuff.
Oh, this is not a family friendly show. So dick fuck balls. There you go. It's not family friendly. I don't care. Ideally,
I'm a teacher, so I like pretend like, oh my god, cursing, but teachers curse. Teachers curse. I promise you.
I have kids, so I can put on the act of not swearing and stuff. But just all I ask is just within the first 5 minutes, don't drop like the N-bomb or something.
I got.
That's all I care about.
I definitely won't be doing that.
Oh, we're at 5 minutes. You can say the N-word if you want.
Oh, good.
So we're
I'll
good
save
now.
that for later. Wait another 5.
Yeah, because I mean the 5's just like a rumor you hear that if you once you get past the first 5 minutes, you're good algorithm wise. They're not getting dinged.
Oh,
I mean, but like it's probably safe to go with like 10.
All right, so fuck the algorithm, you know.
So you want to go ahead and introduce yourself. I know you're a content creator as well, so I don't know if you want to go into that. Obviously, don't introduce too much of yourself because we're going to go more into your story later.
For sure.
Just kind of over who you are, what you do, what you're about. Obviously, like, this is your chance to kind of, go into your like content creator side of things.
Yeah, for sure. I'll plug myself. You can find me on Teaching Liberty on YouTube. I'm gonna have a bunch of new content coming real soon. I'm on we were talking about this before. I'm on Twitter, but I would say like I'm more active on Instagram. So on Instagram, I'm at Teaching Liberty, and on Twitter, I'm Teach Liberty 1, which is shown up there because you're on Twitter and that's where we met. A tweet recently that I think that where I met a lot of people was the one where I was saying, as of today, I will no longer be allowed to enter my school building. Because New York City put in a mandate at first it was just for teachers, and today the mayor announced for all city workers, there's no more testing option. Either get the jab or lose your job. And so for me, as of October 1st, I was no longer allowed in the school building, and I was having my religious exemption processed. So it was another few days until they denied me. And I believe it was October 6th that I started to be on unpaid leave. So it's been about 15 days now, little 14 days, 2 weeks. And in some ways it's, it's scary. It's unsure, right? I don't have an income right now, and they've given us a few different options, but I'm not taking their options. They terminated me. That's how I see it. They terminated me. They don't get to dress it up as resigning or some severance. No, you terminated me from my job. But in other ways, it's very freeing. I'm a free woman. So now I'm free to go out into the world and do bigger and better things. I'm trying to see this as an opportunity, and it's going to hurt a little bit in the short term, right? But I'm playing a little bit more of a long game, because the thing is, if we don't stand up right now, what are they going to mandate next? Once you give them autonomy over your body, just say, oh, to keep your job, you got to put this in your body, right? What are they going to do next?
Yeah, no, I agree. I've been looking at more as like a cost benefit analysis, so it's different for everybody. I mean, there's different situations. There are some people that just are not in a spot whatsoever they can, and I would actually think some people would be foolish to not comply. And I see it as like a cost benefit analysis. So
yes,
it's where, I mean, I know in my community, the Liberty community or whatever, they kind of, a lot of them are butthurt about that. They're very hard line, don't comply. And I think, generally speaking, yes, you shouldn't comply. And there is definitely long-term benefit. So I see it as a cost-benefit analysis. So if you can in any way possibly make it work, I think you possibly should, because I actually think it works out better in the long run for liberty and on an individual level. Because if you can be in a spot where the ideal is to put yourself economically in a situation in which you can't be kowtowed like that. So,
right.
That's the ideal. And that way you're in a spot where it's like, if someone comes, there's no one, you're uncancelable, so like, say something with like, not that I'm, have any, I mean, I guess like down the line do, but like say with like podcasting, like, generally speaking, I guess YouTube can take you down, but usually you have multiple sources. You're kind of, to some extent, hard to be fucked with. So, and there's not really some compliance they can get you with. All right,
yeah, no, I agree. And that's kind of, I was just saying it today. I was saying it kind of like a deck of cards, but I think how you said it a little bit more in like the economic terms of the cost benefit analysis is probably even more accurate. That's how I'm doing it. Like, I'm taking the pinch right now, and I think long term it's going to force me to like really like be able to build up my own fortress, right? Some insulation from this, but not just like playing defense, but also like go out and then play some offense. And I really hope, like, just because I know so many people who took the vaccine who I love so much, people in my family, all that. So, I hope that there's nothing that ends up down the line happening because of these COVID vaccines. But, also as a young, healthy person, that definitely is part of my, cost benefit analysis.
Yep, definitely. I do want to point out real quick for those who interested in knowing, because I did a religious exemption. I'm still waiting to see the results. You did a religious exemption. I guess I'll say from my perspective, I'll let you guys know the Russian Orthodox are super based on it. Just FYI. But the angle I attacked it from was apparently, I guess, I don't know if this is a well-known thing, but from what I've been told and what I've looked into is every current vaccine out there has, whether it's in the production phase or in the testing phase, has used fetal line cells.
Yep.
So you have the abortion argument because those are aborted fetus cells they use. So there's the abortion argument, which is pretty easy to make from a religious perspective. And then even from you make the case of that if you are in any way supporting it, you are increasing the amount of cells that are going to be used. So you can kind of bring it to economics as well. But I'm just curious, is that the same route you attacked it from? Because I'm just trying to give people information.
Yeah, I definitely included the abortion piece in there about, thou shalt not kill, things like that. And then also, God talks about keeping the species separate. I'm Jewish, so I focused on.
Oh my God, not again. Oh, there we go.
You
there?
Yeah,
I was like, oh God,
okay.
not again. I don't know. I haven't had this issue in a long time. I don't know what's going on with my internet. It's been so screwy the past couple of days.
Oh,
but
no.
go ahead. But yeah, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, to keep the species separate. So like you said, abortion lines are used. Well, also like they use animal proteins either in them or to grow the vaccine on them. Which has all sorts of, cross contaminations and things like that. And again, so just keeping your blood pure, keeping the species separate.
Yeah.
And then, something I just went into my faith and how I grew up and how my faith evolved over time, and about how, I named my son Caleb, which is God's most faithful. And because I've always put my faith in God, when life gets hard, that's what I do. And that's how I came to this decision. So, in New York City, they just rejected people. They didn't give any reason. They were just like, checkbox denied. And at the court hearing last week, the DOE claimed that they had approved people from over 20 different religions or something, or from 20 different religions. And it's like, well, what does that mean? Like, did you approve 20 people? Like, did you approve, 40 people out of thousands? And so, we have a few court cases going. We haven't seen much luck so far in the courts. The religious exemption has another hearing, I believe, this week, or maybe it's next week. And then we just lost in the appellate court for a class action lawsuit that we had. And so we're looking to file to get into the Supreme Court. Obviously, that's not a short thing. You have to apply and see. So we're doing that process. And I do think that there'll be many more lawsuits to come.
Yeah, I do want to bring up a chat someone brought up real quick, because I this was a thought I had. It says I'm a Satanist. Everything is up to the individual. For those in the know, not all Satanists literally worship Satan. There's if anything, Satanists are usually edgy atheists. That's really all they are. But like they're just people have this like code of they go by. But he says so everything's up to the individual. Fuck anyone who tries to force, coerce, or mandate anyone do anything. Sterner and Redbeard, Nietzsche, individual anarchy and egoism. No, I 100% agree. I actually it was just funny when I was doing the form. I was like, man, I could totally and 100% make the same exact argument, because I can make a abortion argument from an atheist perspective easily.
Yeah.
And it's like, but they're not gonna. I highly doubt they would value it
one thing that I heard, I went to a seminar with some lawyers that were running a seminar, and one thing that they said that you have to be careful of is making a philosophical objection rather than a religious objection. So she did say in the thing, she was like, you could be a Satanist, that could be your religion, and you could get a religious exemption, but you still have to kind of follow. They gave us a formula to follow. Obviously it needs to be long, and everyone needs to be your own, but just kind of the parts that you should include. So it could totally work. It's just that if you, some of the people that you like, Nietzsche is like a philosopher.
Mhm.
So I don't know if I would necessarily include that line of thinking in my letter. I would try to keep it more along the traditional lines of religion. But another person, Michael Caine, so Caine versus de Blasio is our religious exemption, like that's the name
Mhm.
on it. And Michael Caine is founder of Teachers for Choice, which is a caucus for teachers in New York City who stand up for medical freedom. And there's been a few different chapters that have been established in like New York and in Long Island. And I think they're talking about New Jersey too. So his religious was like Buddhism and Christianity, right? So like again, it doesn't need to be a traditionally like recognized religion. It just needs to be your deeply held religious belief. And so I really do believe that the Department of Education is guilty of discrimination based on people's religious beliefs. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not going to resign, as I
Mhm.
said in the beginning, and I'm not going to take their severance package or whatever they're saying. They are going to terminate me because when they terminate you, that gives you more standing to sue versus like if you leave kind of amicably, which is like what resigning is, even if you like don't like it, if you resign, it's kind of seen as more amicable. And I believe there's different legal implications for that. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but just
Yeah.
from what I'm gathering through these cases that we're doing. And so, I'm going to sue them for discrimination. I've filed with the EEOC, which is the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. I sent in a fax today declaring like, hey, like I want a letter so I can sue these people to hopefully try to expedite the process. Who knows? It's a federal like part of the federal branch of government. So I don't know how fast they're working.
Yeah.
But
Michael responded again. I do want to address. I'm all for if you want to make the case to your employer or whatever for like make a religious argument from a non-religious perspective. I mean, go for it. I'm all for it. I if anything just thought it was interesting that it's like that in a weird way as kind of discrimination in a sense. Like even though you aren't religious, like you're an atheist or whatever, but you're able to make an argument that it goes against your virtues. It is kind of silly that you have to have a belief system behind it or a religious belief system to back it up. But I mean, if you can make that work, go for it. But I mean, I would more say like, wouldn't it make more sense to do what actually works or could possibly work? But
yeah,
whatever.
that's what
Like,
I'm saying. So like you have to decide how much of a fight you want to have.
yeah.
Like, in the one sense, I do agree. Like, why is Catholicism any better than necessarily something that's more rooted in like a philosophy? I mean, as a God person who believes in God, like I could make a religious argument, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
why I think it's better to have like a faith that's based on God rather than just a purely like kind of logical like faith.
Yeah.
So maybe there is some sort of like delineation there in the legal history that favors my bias. But if
Mhm.
I was gonna like step back and take like the more like liberty perspective, I would say like it doesn't need to be religious for somebody to have their deeply held belief that they're like, like it's more what is that when you take like you won't participate in the military, take
Uh, fuck.
a moral
Conscious,
object yeah
conscientious objector. Yeah.
yeah conscious objector, like that's a thing, you know what I mean? Like I think that that's kind of the same idea.
Pro tip for anyone in the military: there are way easier ways to get out than that. That's actually a nightmare. Pete Quinones did an episode with Dylan Allman, who is a conscious objector, and he goes into how he said multiple times, like, I just wish I just finished up my contract. It would have been way easier because it's not this quick. Like, I'm a conscious objector and see ya. Like, so,
Yeah.
yeah, just throwing that out there. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Keep
No,
going.
no, no, no. I think I was like pretty much at the end of my thought just
Yeah.
about going into the line of argument that the person in the comment was making.
Yeah. Yeah, and he said attack the illegitimate power in any ways necessary. And you know what? More power to you. If you want to fight it, I don't
Yeah.
care. I mean, I don't really
Well,
give a shit. I'm just
it
saying, like,
does
if you
make me
actually
think
want to be
though,
successful.
yeah, it makes me think of something that like Dave Smith said.
Mhm.
And he was talking about how right now the vaccine mandate is the biggest threat that there is to liberty. And not only is it the biggest threat, but it's like fundamentally threatening, right?
Mhm.
Versus if we're in a different time, the biggest threat might not be like a fundamental threat to like all liberty.
Yeah.
And so I do think like sometimes you have to kind of like choose where you're going to put your energy. And so like yeah, fight the man in any way possible, fight the tyranny in any way possible, but maybe the best thing to do in that is to take the half step and just get a religious exemption,
Yeah.
using a more traditional interpretation of your actually deeply held religious beliefs, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
so
At the very least, it'll buy you time. But if you're in a situation in which you can say fuck the system and I'm just gonna make my argument that I want to make, go for it. I don't
right,
care.
yeah, I
I
think
mean, let's go
ultimately
ahead. Yeah. Sorry,
I
I
was
was gonna
just gonna
say
say, I think
yeah.
ultimately we need to do like there needs to be multiple people doing a lot of different things. Like no one
Yeah.
approach is good. There's
It's
many
all
paths
situational. Yeah.
to liberation.
Yeah, it's all situational. It's just obviously the ideal is to have as much liberty as possible. I do real quick before I hit the super chat. I do want to let everyone know I didn't say it earlier. The her Stephanie's GoFundMe is in the video in the description. It's so I normally do the video description later when I do the numbered episode, but it's in here now. So if you guys want to donate to help her along this, but Anchor, Agarwal, I've seen you on Twitter by the way, bud. He gave a $15 super chat, which I appreciate it, man. Are you worried that your religious exemption, the state will comb through your life for instances where you broke with Jewish law in order to try and paint you as being insincere in your appeal? I mean, I would say that would be a kind of a rough spot to put them in because you're going to weird debating theology, but you go ahead.
No, I mean it's not like it's something you don't think about. However, I would like to think that my actions are more or less consistent with my beliefs overall. I mean, you can nitpick and take things out of context, sure. You can do that for anybody. I think that yeah, it'd be a lot of manpower for one person.
Yeah.
But it's a fair point. I mean, it's not like it's something that people don't think about. Um, I have done, quite a few media appearances, but again, everything that I say is like literally my sincerely held belief. So, do you always act in line with your values? No, our politicians know that perfectly well. Like it's everybody's human, so
Yeah, and like I
the
was
only
saying, I
person who
just
can
yeah.
judge me is God, right?
Yeah, and it would be just a silly place for them to come from because especially when you're talking about theology, there's so many different perspectives. So you're just getting into like a Pandora's box of arguing if you went that route as a state. Which I mean, whatever if they want to, but now you're just I guess
The
kind of wasting your
Inquisition.
time. Yeah. So you brought up Dave Smith, and I kind of want to ask you where you come from ideologically, just because I think it applies to what we're going to talk about here a lot. So yeah, just kind of curious. I kind of got more of like a conservative vibe. I'm just kind of curious where you're coming from. Because to be upfront, I'm a complete and utter anarchist. So I don't think there should be
Okay.
government at all. I mean, I'm not like crazy about it. Like I'm not like someone that's out there like protesting like murder laws. Like I mean, like those are the last ones to go. You know what I mean?
Right.
But like
Like a
I know
Michael
that
Malice,
yeah,
a Michael
yeah,
Malice
basically
anarchist. Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think like a Michael Malice is cool. Like I would say I'm somewhere like along the lines like between like Dave Smith and Michael Malice somewhere.
Okay.
I've always been kind of like libertarian-ish, like not like super libertarian party, but
Yeah.
like
No shit together.
I've never really identified with the right or the left. Like I've always kind of done like I remember in college I did this thing called No Labels, which like looking back I'm pretty sure was like some corporate like let's have a third party guys, like whatever. But like as a young kid you don't necessarily know that. You just like, oh, I don't believe in either of these parties, I think we should have a third party. So and I was like in the libertarian club, which I turned into the alternative political society, because I was like, all right, we're gonna need more than libertarians if we're gonna have a club here, guys.
Yeah.
So we got a few more members that way. And yeah, I've just always been non-affiliated, like registered
Yeah.
non-affiliated usually.
That's interesting. I don't know why. I kind of like tried to like do a little bit of research on you, so I combed through Twitter a little bit, and I got a little bit more of a conservative vibe, but I couldn't tell. So it's kind of
Yeah.
interesting that you're like a
Well,
little bit more. Go ahead. Sorry.
that's kind of like where I feel like, if you're going to be kind of like a little bit more mainstream or like teachers, it's like a conservative crowd, I feel like.
Yeah.
Or yeah, in the mainstream, like libertarians always get kind of like put in with conservatives, which I think is not right necessarily, especially like maybe 5 years ago when the Democratic Party wasn't so far left, but like, because you'll be like anti-war, but you're also anti-big government. So yeah, but I can definitely see how you would get those vibes, especially on
Yeah.
Twitter with issues like this. It's a very conservative issue. So I've been getting like a lot of play in the conservative algorithm.
That's interesting. You brought that up. I didn't even have this in my notes, but you brought up like it's more conservative for teachers. I'm kind of curious. I guess I come, especially where you're in New York, and then
No, I
teachers.
just
I
mean
got more of a
like
left. Oh, go ahead.
no, yeah. Teachers in general are left vibe, but if you're gonna
Okay,
be
I was
like
gonna say,
different, if you're gonna be
yeah,
different, then you're gonna be in with like more of a conservative
yes.
crowd.
You can't be
So
full on anarchist. That's too far.
right, there's not like a huge like libertarian
Yeah,
teacher Twitter. So it's just kind of like super liberal teachers,
yeah,
which is like 95% of people, and then there's like the 5% rest of us, and that just like kind of happens to be conservative-ish.
yeah.
And I started making content with this education newspaper. They're fairly new, called Chalkboard Review, and they have definitely like a conservative bent to them. But at the same time, it's like, I would say if you take a like deeper dig below the surface, like people have very different and nuanced views. Um, so,
Yeah.
but yeah, I can understand how you got that vibe.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That yeah, no, it's funny because I guess if you're a libertarian or an anarchist, they'd be like, well, what the fuck are you even doing here? Which kind of leads into my next point. Like, I'm kind of curious, like, what are your thoughts on our like education, like especially public? Because I'm assuming you were a public teacher,
Yeah,
or
public school teacher.
because I know that's a pretty common thing with anarchists and libertarians.
Yeah,
They're very queasy on public education, but at the same point, someone's gotta teach them. You know, what I mean, like the kids. But I guess there's obviously private schools. There's other
right.
avenues, but I mean they have very much restricted the education market. So I mean it's kind of slim pickings, I guess. So
So I think that like public school, I don't necessarily see public schools as not compatible with libertarianism, right? Because like schools are supposed to be like locally controlled. Schools are supposed to be like you vote on your school board, and your school board has a lot of control over what goes on in your schools. So I think that in terms of like libertarian small government, um I guess like I would love it one day if everything was like super totally free market, but at the same time like people are going to form governments. I think that libertarians kind of underestimate how much people are going to like pool resources, and then that essentially is government. Um I see it more, I guess, like fractured. Like, I don't think there should be a Department of Education in the federal government, right?
mhm.
Like, there should be no Secretary Cardona. So I guess I believe public education in that sense, like literally people who decide to live in a place and say, okay, we're gonna give this portion of money towards education, and you can go here if you want to.
Yeah.
Because we believe it's the best thing for everybody here. Now, a different town could decide something different, you
Yeah,
know?
no, I'm all for like a voluntary type public
Yeah.
education, or like a, or even ideally, I mean I wouldn't say I'm for it, but I find it preferable if you, the more localized the better.
Yeah.
So like I obviously I would still be like, well, technically that's not my ideal, but it's
Right.
preferable. So like obviously if you can do like break it up by states or by county or whatever,
Mhm.
but yeah, there's definitely a lot of federal influence has been
And I
seen
could
by the
see it
past couple of
being
years.
done in different ways, like a small town like Bronxville, Connecticut, or Scarsdale, I'm sorry, Bronxville, New York, or Scarsdale, New York, which are these like little, very wealthy suburbs outside of New York City. Like they could probably more or less, like their schools are already basically private schools. Like they have like one, or Bronxville has a K to 12 school. It's all in one building. I think Scarsdale has a few, like it's spread out a little bit, but it's basically going to private school. versus New York. So they can just have one that's taxpayer funded. New York City would obviously require something that's a little bit more sophisticated like that. And so I could see it being more of like a series of small private schools, and then the city gives people like a voucher, right?
Yeah,
To
like
go
charter
and
school type deal.
purchase,
Yeah.
yeah, you know,
Yeah.
and they can go and purchase whatever education fits the needs of their students, and they'll have like a wide variety of options.
Yeah.
So I think I have a pretty libertarian vision for education, even though the way that I would choose to express it is I'm a supporter of public education. I think everybody should have access to a free, high quality
Yeah.
education.
No, I actually agree. I'm like more of an ANCAP, or I actually think in magical Ancapistan, where the world is completely, there's no government or whatever, there would be it actually we would have a better system of schooling, and it would actually be about the same,
Right. I
if
just
not
think like
better. So yeah,
long term, if you want a libertarian society to survive, like you need all people to have some pathway to success. Otherwise you're just gonna create a two-tier society.
yeah,
So I would rather see like really high quality education be the vehicle for getting people to, you know, move up and do better rather than government
yeah. No, I
subsidies and
don't
this and that.
disagree. I guess my thing is I see like teachers, especially public school teachers, and
Yeah.
don't think this is a ding. I just got out of the military recently. I see it in the same vein as active, or I see it in the same vein as like military, as cops, as like teachers. Just like I said, it's in that like sure, I know a lot of people make fun of people who say like the good cop or whatever, like,
Mhm.
but there is some truth to that, in that there are people who are better than the others, and I just think the incentives create an issue. So when, especially,
Yeah.
like obviously it'd be preferable if we had things on a state level, but we have the federal influence, and that creates certain incentives where, generally speaking, most teachers, I mean, you could probably correct me if I'm wrong, probably aren't as good as they could be.
Yeah. No, no, 100%. I totally agree. And
Yeah.
this is, you know, like this is what I talked about before like open school stuff came along, before the vaccine mandates, like before things like that are started like really threatening our liberty. I talked basically all about school issues
Mhm.
and reforming the schools and some of the problems. And one of the things I was always railing on was teachers. Like there's a lot of really cringy like teacher Instagram and teacher Twitter out there, like, oh, teachers, they work so hard and they're paid so little. And like, I crap all over that stuff because I'm not into the victim mentality. I think actually in general, like if you look at the average salary of teachers, it's like very middle class. Like there are some places where the pay is really crap and I'd be like, wow, I'm not working there. But also like the cost of living is way lower. Like I live in the most expensive place to live in the whole country, you know? So I probably would make sense that I make twice as much as you since I pay twice as much in rent or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's a lot of different reasons I think for that. But like at the same time, I've been in corporate and there's a lot of dumbass people there too. So I don't know, they can just hide it, I think, better with their like money, and it's a different type of industry versus being service work. You know, service work is different than like producing something that makes money.
Yeah. No, for sure. I got another super chat. Do your political or social views ever influence your teaching content or style? Also, either of you, any thoughts on Ron Paul homeschool curriculum, or Corey DeAngelis's fund
Yeah.
students, not systems? I mean, for the second part, I'll just go ahead. And I don't really have much else to say because obviously I'm not a teacher. But Ron Paul, I mean, obviously I'm all for homeschool. I'm not like super up to all that. And then the Corey God, I don't know why that name fucks with me so much.
DeAngelis.
DeAngelis,
Yeah.
yeah. A fun students, not systems. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for that. I mean, I'm the one
I
just
think that's
examining
that's who I was
Wikipedia.
thinking of when I said like
Yeah,
the kid would get a voucher and they can go
yeah,
where they want. You know, Corey's I like Corey. I don't always agree 100% with him on everything, but I love the advocacy that he's doing. School choice and homeschooling are both seeing a huge uptick in popularity right now. You know, obviously now that I don't have a job, but I still see myself in the education space. Homeschooling is something that I'm becoming more interested in, seeing how I can, you know, help support families, do tutoring, start my own small school, something like that. Um, So I'll definitely be checking out Ron. I didn't realize he had his own curriculum, so I'm going to check that out. Ron Paul
Yeah.
is the man.
Yeah.
In terms of my views influencing my teaching, I'm actually about to have a video come out kind of that touches on this topic on the Chalkboard Review page. It's about like good history teaching.
Yeah.
And so and this book that I had, I must have, oh, it's right over there. It's called What is History? And you know, it's like a philosophy of history book. And so at the end of the day, you know, I'm the person through whom the content is filtering.
Mhm.
So yeah, like my bias is going to impact my class to some extent. Now, that's something that I try to be aware of and I try to hedge against to an extent. But the other extent, I think I'm highly qualified, and I think that, you know, that my perspective is I don't, again, I don't want to say it's right, but I think it's one that's informing them to have a good education.
Yeah, I mean, with something like history, I don't even know how you could
Yeah.
not. I mean, this isn't math or English. Like, I mean, you are
Right.
literally like, this is what happened, and I know a lot of people like to be like, oh, just facts and this is that, but it's like
Yeah. Well,
there's a
it's like
whole
who
lot of like,
chooses the
why did this?
facts,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Who chooses the facts? So I choose the facts. And so one way that I try to hedge against my bias is I try to present lots of facts from multiple sources with different you know, 2-3 interpretations of those sources. Now I have to balance that because my kids are in 10th grade, so I can't do too much. You know, oftentimes we'll say like less is more. I rather dig in deep to one document um than try to like crunch in 3. So there's got to be balance there, but I try to do several things in terms of giving them several different interpretations of any given event. You know, so one that I might agree with, definitely one I don't disagree with, maybe one that's somewhere in between. And then I also try to, you know, share my bias to an extent. I don't want to give them everything. I try to avoid telling them like who I vote for and this and that. But, you know, I share with them my bias so that they can call me out. And I want them to challenge me. Hey, did I leave anything out? What do you think? What have you heard? So,
Yeah,
and
you know.
like,
Oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, I was gonna say someone brought up, and I just thought it was fun. I don't know if you've gone down this rabbit trail before, how our system is set
Uh
up, how
huh.
the Russian. Okay, cool. I was like, I didn't know if you'd gone down that because I've a little bit. I've never really done a deep dive. I just always found that very interesting. That it's like that's and that kind
So
of
that
plays
was
to
going
my
to be my
earlier
next
points earlier.
video,
Yeah.
actually. After that, for chalkboard reviews, I recently read this book called The Leipzig Connection. I think I'm saying that,
Mhm.
or Leipzig. It's like a German city, and it talks about how like that education model was kind of like brought over here, and it has to do with like the Rockefellers and whatever the other big family was at that time. And it just really gets into how they were interested in that time in doing certain things to make these big billionaire families look better, right? So okay, that's why we're going to get into education. And then they also wanted to come up with like a new science, right? They wanted to come up with something big and different. And so they brought in a bunch of nonsense at the same time too. So yeah, that's definitely something I want to dig deeper into. You know, I think that there's some validity to it. I think that in many ways, I think that classical education makes sense, right? And that not all of it's the Prussian model. A lot of this is like the like from when humanism was a big thing and the Renaissance, right? Kind of more just like classical education. So to an extent, I think that's true. I think there's a lot of messed up things like the over medication of kids, I think is a big deal that not enough people talk about. And like people are just casually like, oh yeah, give them Ritalin. Like that's what that kid needs. Like, no, that's probably not what that kid needs. You know what I mean? Like they
No.
probably just
Yeah.
need to like go run around.
Yeah, no, I was a kid on Ritalin, and now in my later years, I'm like, shit. I just just thought differently. I mean, I don't think I'm like a genius, but I'm clearly, I feel like, in my opinion, a little bit smarter than your average bear. So like, I was like, if anything, I was like, like I just thought different. I just need to learn to how to harness that. And now I've like, I don't feel like people can tell I have ADD or whatever. I just have learned to master it. So,
Right.
but
Yeah. I
yeah,
don't I'm not into that. Like I think that there's definitely like Like, if a kid is on the spectrum or something, or if you have cerebral palsy, or like there's certain things obviously that need labels. But I think then we get in, and this goes back to like the whole Leipzig connection, and like really this time period where everybody wants to come up with their thing and their categorization of it, and just like everything needs to be medicalized and problematized, is we're just keep closing the window of what it means to be normal
Mhm.
versus, like, I mean, there definitely is a difference between somebody who's like not normal and normal, but like, where is that line? I'd like
Yeah.
to see it be pretty broad.
That's the whole reason it's called the spectrum. Yeah. Like, where are you on it? Like, I'm
No, yeah,
probably
yeah.
on there somewhere. Like, I
Right,
don't
right,
know how
right.
far.
And another thing that I've seen too is like I worked with a lot of autistic kids. Like when I was in college and grad school, I did a phonics program and like reading comprehension. And what's like they're amazing thinkers in the way that they think. But I saw this documentary about diet, and they were saying that a lot of the behaviors presented are very triggered by like high sugar diets, like high gluten diets. So that's again, I don't know to what extent.
Yeah, the 90s were
Um,
awful for processed foods.
but yeah, I've definitely noticed it myself. I mean, I have issues with my skin, and what it is when I eat, like I'm allergic to gluten, and then like I'm pretty sure also soy gives me issues, and like my skin will break out. Like I was having issue with my left eye this last week. It just like gets red and stuff, and it's from the food.
Yeah. So Michael, he's bringing up good points. I mean, I'm gonna kind of play off of this, and it kind of ties into the Prussian model. But I know growing up, like I didn't learn until I was an adult how to think. Like
Mm,
school never taught me how to think, like logical fallacies, like just like which seems ridiculous. Like I actually kind of got an argument with my wife about something to do with my kid today. I was like, and I remember why. I literally was like, well, this is why you need to think this way, blah blah blah. Like I don't remember exactly what we were talking about. I don't know if I was talking about fallacies or what, and she's like, well, you shouldn't do that. Like you're just filling her head. I'm like, no, like this is the building block of learning, and then the facts and all the shit like that comes later. Like it shouldn't be the opposite, because people have this idea
yeah,
that
I mean,
like
it
we should
needs to
learn the
be
fact.
like at
Yeah.
least some sort of like ebb and flow versus like do this and then that, right?
For me, I
So
just feel like I mean, obviously you don't want to do that for like little kids, but like
yeah,
at some point you need to be like, this is how you go
we're
about
big on
thinking.
the vegetable propaganda over here. Vegetables are good.
Yeah.
We love vegetables. We eat all of our vegetables, right? Because we get big and strong. So I'm big on the vegetable propaganda for sure. But no, I'm with you. Yeah, I agree with this person's comment. So my channel before I changed it to Teaching Liberty was called Class Disruption.
Mhm.
And that was the whole idea, was that the class disruption is always that kid that we punish, we kick out, we think needs to be put on medication. But really it should be that energy that we're trying to embrace, and figure out, okay, like what is this person trying to say? Because I do feel like I was a bit of a class disruption. I was good enough at school that I could make it work. Um, but in my own class, once I figured out how to really like get those kids involved that were the ones like calling out or cursing or asking the silly questions, I figured out how to involve them and center and be like, when they ask a super, I'd be like, that's a great question, right? Because oftentimes like questions that we think are stupid is really just the teachers like, but like you could address it and deal with it and turn it into a learning moment. And so you bring that kid in instead of pushing them out. And then that was kind of my point too. And as a teacher, like, okay, that teacher that is going to say something that's a little bit different from the other teachers, they're going to be the ones that everybody, gets mad at. And of course, what happened, everybody was triggered. They reported me to my principal. They got me in trouble, and so I had to shut that channel down. But I came back as Teaching Liberty, and now I'm a completely free woman. So fuck the system. We're back. But yeah, I say all that to be like, I do believe in many ways that our system is based on compliance. And that's why teachers love the masks. It's not because they think it keeps them safe, but it's just like another little piece of compliance. And kids are quieter in the mask. They're
Mhm.
more compliant in general. So again, obviously my vision of what school could be is much different than what it is. And
That's a
I
good point. Yeah.
used
I
to
never thought of
believe,
that. Yeah, about the compliance for the kids. Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, and I used to believe that the system could be reformed from within. I was still of the mind that you could get in there and good people could change things and work together. But this last 18 months, and just like the 6 years working at the DOE, looking at the beast in the face, it's like, no, we have to build our own thing. It's time to
Yeah.
make our own, because what we say is the government is the government. And right now we're giving this conglomerate of people way too much power. Time to invest that power in ourselves, in our own community, in our own institutions.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. Didn't really intend to go in this route, but if you have any thoughts on what you're going to do going forward, or are you just because I know the one thing, the height of the lockdowns, a lot of people were talking about was like doing like homeschooling pods and stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
say somebody like you, there's an economic opportunity where I don't know, you could probably pool some sort of resources from parents, make it also really cheap. The more people you have, stuff like that. I mean, there are different routes to go. I mean, obviously, it'd be great if, they just decide, oh, just kidding, we'll take you back. But like, that may not be the case. And this
Yeah.
is just skills you have. So like, what are your thoughts going forward? Like, what are you thinking?
So go subscribe to my YouTube channel, Teaching Liberty. I'm gonna bring my teaching to YouTube. I'm working on my website to create like a place where you could become a community member, almost like your Patreon, and have like a discussion board where you can get access to like teaching resources to go along with the video. So like I said, I really want to make something where everybody can access it, like where you can get like video and learning for free, and then have like a more, kind of like if you want access to me and like you
Mhm.
want lesson plans, you can pay for that. I'm trying to get the tutoring stuff going up. And unfortunately, I think that these mandates, they're going to come for the kids. I mean, they already are in California. So I think that there is going to be an opportunity here. Again, I don't even like to say opportunity. I hate putting it into those terms, but I think that there is going to be a need
For every yin, there's a
for
yang. So.
for teachers, because I think that there's going to be plenty of parents that run out and get their kid vaccinated, and I wish them all the best. But I think that there's going to be at least just as many who are ready to yank their kids, or ready to raise all hell over this. So I will be here and hopefully have everything set up and running to go, when that time, if that time comes.
No, that's a good
Yeah.
idea. I mean, the more the state overexerts its power, the more the counter economy, gains footing for people to understand like what that is, agorism and such. But yeah, that's basically what we're talking about right there. Like you creating like that's a really good idea, especially like the Patreon and having more of an exclusive. So let's bring it back to I kind of want to talk about like your just thoughts on COVID in general and how it's affected
Mm-hmm.
you being a teacher and stuff. Prior because you're in New York, so you're in the thick of it. I'm here in Florida, and don't get me wrong, we had our moments in Florida, but it was not New York, that's for sure.
No, we call Florida the free state. I'd be like, oh, the
Yeah.
free state of Florida. So, in the beginning days, it was rough. I remember the Friday before the city shut down. It was Friday the 13th of March, 2020. And I was like, something's going on here. Like, I'm taking off of work. I'm staying home. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't trust these people. They out here telling us, oh no, everything's fine, this and that. But I'm like, look at what's going on in these other countries. I was like, I'm staying my butt right home and called out. And then I was thinking that probably we should like everybody should maybe just stay home and chill out for the next couple weeks as much as they could, saying the city should shut down. Now, in hindsight, I think I was wrong. In hindsight, I think I should have, said, do what you want to do, but everything should continue running
Yeah.
as much as possible. But in my credit, after 2 weeks, I started to be like, all right, guys, like we said 2 weeks. And I was a little bit surprised when they extended it past here it was 420 was the date. And I kept telling my kids, oh no, after spring break, we're definitely going back. Like we can't do this for however long. And then, by the summer, I was very much like, all right, like, what the hell is going on here? Like, at first I was pro mask too. At first, the government was telling us not to wear the mask. So I was like, I don't know. I think we should wear the mask. But then by the time they mandated it, I was like, no, what's this cloth doing, So, again, at first I was on the wrong side of it, I think. But to my credit, I kind of quickly wisened up And I got hardened over last school year when they shut down the schools. And I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that the city was putting their power behind encouraging families to stay home instead of encouraging kids to come back to school after seeing how devastating the impacts and how ineffective online learning was. I went out, I started protesting with parents. I started a organization called Teachers for Open Schools, but it was hard to teach. It's not a popular position, so we got a few teachers here and there.
Yeah, no, it's wild. There definitely should have been a whole lot more options, because I know Ron Paul was screaming about this from the beginning, that especially once we found out the stats, that it didn't really cause harm for
Yeah.
young children, and most people who have young children are usually younger adults or middle-aged adults. So yeah, sure. I mean, you can maybe have the option to do your online schooling if you want, but for the most part, young kids, young adults are generally the people that don't have an issue with it. If anything, they should have been if anything, we should have been borderline encouraging these people to get immunity, and then the older folks,
We should have been
stay
doing
back. Yeah,
what Florida was doing.
yeah.
Like Florida had their kids going in person from the jump last year. I don't think that they ever closed down.
I
They
think
would
there's a
pull kids
small
out.
window, if I remember
Okay.
correctly, but it was super small, and then they went to the
Yeah.
option. Yeah,
And then, I guess they pull kids out for quarantine, but if Florida, in my opinion, has done this whole thing more or less right,
yeah.
or as right as you could be. Like, you're not going to get every single call right. You're not going to do every single part. But in general, I think if everybody went the way of Florida, this country would be way better off right now.
Yeah, or even more extreme, just literally do nothing aside from maybe provide an option for online learning, because it's for the most part, if you are a person who feels like you don't want to take that risk, then maybe you have a good reason, and then you shouldn't take that risk.
Right.
Everyone else, it's
Yeah.
we're
I
weighing
mean,
the
just in
options.
hindsight, I think the whole thing has been way overhyped.
Yeah.
I think that there was some sort of I don't know what to call it, because it's so hard to assign motive, right? It's so hard to decide, is this just mass incompetence and stupidity? I was looking at the book of Daniel a couple weeks ago. We did a Bible study talk, and in the one part it describes the leader, the king. I forget what his name is. He has kind of a difficult name, but it just says that he's enraged. He's just so enraged, and he's acting so irrational in what he's doing. And so that kind of pushes me more towards thinking that okay, there are probably some bad actors, like China and probably elites at the very top in the United States are some bad actors, but maybe somebody like Bill de Blasio is literally just so lost and enraged and wants to do something to feel like he has a legacy in New York, and this is going to be his legacy, and he's such, he could get everybody to take the vaccine, and it just literally is irrational. So, and then in other parts of me, I do believe in some of that stuff. Maybe there is a globalist agenda, this and that, but I think you start to lose people, and I don't think you have to go that far.
No,
I
it's
think
both. It's both. That's
yeah,
what it is. Because it's I mean, obviously the government has, or just these type of agencies have a tendency to draw in incompetent people and power seekers. So then you have this combination of idiots, and then people who are actually generally pretty savvy and have an agenda. And idiots are pretty easy to control. So it's this perfect fucking recipe for shit.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so, I just have faith, even as things have gotten harder, I guess the harder that they've gotten, it's the more that I've just leaned into my faith. Because I guess you can say from a logical perspective that religion, it doesn't make logical sense. It's based on faith. But at some point, it's well, then what the hell is my belief in this government and all the things they're doing? Because none of that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So when I read the stories, and I've been reading it a lot more, and I have my Torah that I got from when I had my bat mitzvah. And so it's it has all the chapters, but then it also has commentary, and it helps bring you through the thought process and everything. And just the more that I read it and reread the stories, it makes, I feel like the other people, they could also make a religious argument, but in the Bible, it's always the person who's standing alone, or it's always the small group of people trying to convince the other people to like come the way of God, right? It's always the people building the golden calf. Everybody's building the golden calf except for Moses, and he comes down from the hill and has to convince everybody not to, right? Everybody is bowing down to the statue except for Daniel and his couple friends. And they have
Yeah.
to convince them with the power of God not to. So, I mean, I could be wrong. I could my conversations could be flawed or could be misguided, but that's how I see it.
Yeah, I did want to touch on something you said earlier. I kept meaning to bring it up, but I keep forgetting it. I found some more juicy other tangent to go on. But I just thought it was funny you brought up that you really can't complain about the pay, or I mean, you probably could find something to complain about, but it's really not
Oh
as
yeah,
bad
I
as
could
people make it out to
complain.
be. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But the same thing, a lot of people know who watch my show. A few months ago, I just got out of active duty military, but I was 11 years, and I was
Okay.
an E
Thank you
six.
for your service. I
You don't have
appreciate
to
that.
trust me. I'm not proud of it. But fucking anyways, no, it's all good. Don't worry. It's fine. I'm sorry I made that weird. But
No, I mean
but
I could argue with you on that, but no, I
yeah.
understand you.
Yeah, but not that I did anything like horrid. I was a fucking mechanic. I just to my point that I'm getting at, I was a complete and utter fucking waste of time because or time and money for people because yeah, I mean I was very much overpaid. Like I fucking I don't have any like credentials. I just no wrong, I was a good mechanic, but like you people get the military and like teachers and I guess cops might be a little more accurate. They're a little bit underpaid in some places because I've seen
Well,
their
yeah,
their
I think it
salaries,
depends where you
but
work. Not in New York
yeah,
City. New York City, they're paid
but
pretty good.
yeah, and that's not to say I'm a fan of cops, but if you do look at their pay, you're kind of like, oh fuck, that does suck. But but for military, like I can tell you firsthand, it is not anywhere as bad as some people make it out to be. I know like a lot of times when you hear stats about like welfare, people always bring up military, and the reason why there's so many military members on welfare is because they're able to. A lot of our pay was what's called like allotments or allowances, not allotments. Allowances that aren't taxable, so they don't get counted towards stuff like that. So it looks
Uh,
like on paper that you're like, oh, you only make like 20,000 a year, and you're like, yeah, I need food stamps, bro. But it's like, yeah, but like over half your paycheck is like housing allowance, food allowance, shit like that.
right.
So,
Okay.
so yeah, no, the military is not as hard up as people make it out to be at all. Like, I was very well compensated. If anything, shit is way tighter now, and I actually have a well-paying job. So, like, it is what it is. But yeah, with that, I guess we're probably at a good spot. Actually, no, yeah, we're a good spot. You got anything you want to finish on, or you were ready to drop plugs?
No, I just want to say, I appreciate you having me on. I think that this was a fun conversation. I wasn't exactly sure what direction it was going to go into, but this
Mm-hmm.
was a fun direction. I love getting into like political theory and just
Yeah.
like kind of bringing more context to what brought me to this point here. I appreciate you like plugging my GoFundMe. I think in some sense it's like I don't like to ask people for money.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have a kid trying to figure things out. I'm trying to, anything I do, I feel like will ultimately be given back to people. So I appreciate you guys. I appreciate everybody dropping comments. Give me a follow on Twitter at Teach Liberty One. Go subscribe to my YouTube channel, and maybe I'll see your beautiful face around.
Yeah, no. Whenever I drop this as a numbered episode, I'll put all the other information. But right now, there's already the GoFundMe. I did want to touch on real quick though that like didn't really naturally come up, but this is like I know everyone's all about non-compliance, and like that's because I touched on earlier that like this is like a golden calf, if you will, of like you must not comply, and like in our circles, and if you want people to not comply, this is how you go about it. Like if you want to see that, you need to support it. So like people like Stephanie who are making that sacrifice, like even say, I mean, I've explained my situation, but like say before where I was like, I was, because I had said before I may cave if I absolutely had to. People like me, even then, it's like, well, what do we got to do to get you there? Or like
Right,
you're
right.
already doing it. So like, how can we help you to incentivize people to be more likely to take that jump? Because I mean, people are like, yo, I got fucking bills to pay, mouths to feed. Like, sorry, like it is what it is. But if you want people not to, if you're in a situation where you can help out these people, so like Stephanie, definitely, go, consider your GoFundMe. At the very least, go give her a follow. Fucking go subscribe to her YouTube channel. Just like any fucking thing you can, share her content. And definitely whenever you get if you start doing like history shit, I mean, especially if it's some interesting topic, I could probably have you on again to talk about
All
some shit
right,
like that.
cool. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
do it. I
Yeah.
appreciate you, man.
Oh, no problem. No, yeah, it's funny. Like growing up, I hated history in high school, like as a kid, but it was because it was so fucking. It was always like the teachers were like just facts and names, and
Yeah.
like it was just boring. But
Like
now
in
as an adult,
Bueller,
it's
I
like,
have that scene in my head of Bueller where the teacher's like, in 1960,
yep.
yeah, like it's boring. I try to be exciting,
But no, as an
bring
adult,
something
I
different to
listen to
it.
history stuff, shit, and it's so fucking interesting. There's so much
Mm.
going on, but you're like more about like what are the motivations, what is influence. But like as a kid, you're just like, all right, what year do I need to remember? Oh, what sea did they cross?
Nah,
Like,
not in my class. I mean, I want you to remember the year, but I try to, give you a reason to
yeah.
remember it. But
Okay, and for me, I'm on the No Way Jose YouTube channel. You can find me on all the major audio podcatchers. I'm on Odyssey. I'm at Galaxy San Jose on Twitter. If you want to give me money, patreon.com. So it's No Way Jose 2020. That comes with some perks. I don't have a whole lot of perks to give you, especially not as much as Stephanie will hopefully have here soon. Like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. I'm gonna play an ad. If you want to stick around, Stephanie, we can talk around post, or you can bounce. It won't hurt my feelings either way. I know you probably want to go to bed. So yeah, I
yeah, I'll
appreciate
chill for a
having you.
second.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to play the ad.
All right, cool.
If you love playing fantasy football but struggle to find the right resource to help with your research, the guys at Football Insider Edge have you covered. Whether you are a season-long player, focused on DraftKings or FanDuel contests, or just like to make the occasional wager each week on a couple of games, Football Insider Edge provides you with the research tools and in-depth analysis to take your game to the next level. With their proprietary model, matchup charts, and industry award-winning content, the team at Football Insider Edge have devoted themselves to educating their subscribers, helping them improve their play, and a few special moments winning life-changing money. They are proud of the community they've built through weekly interaction on their Slack chat channel and take great pride in helping others to achieve their goals of becoming better fantasy players. As supporters of the show and of the Liberty Movement as a whole, they are currently offering a 20% discount on any monthly or full season plan on their website. Just go to footballinsideredge.com and use the code Jose at checkout to take advantage of the discount offer today. So if you guys are fantasy football people, go check this out. It's a win-win-win. I win, you win, they win. There's no loss here. It's fucking capitalism, baby. Let's do it.